So today we are looking at 1.3 fractions, and we're going to start by looking at how to reduce fractions. So you will notice that there are different methods of stating reducing fractions. It might be written as put the fraction into lowest terms. It might be written as put the fraction into its basic form, or it'll just say make sure that the fractions are reduced. So in this example, we're looking at 9 over 12. So 9 over 12, we could still put this into its most lowest term or into its basic form. So both the numerator and the denominator can both be divided by 3. So the numerator and denominator here are just being shown. They're both being divided by 3. We end up with 3 over 4. Now, 3 over 4 cannot be reduced any further. So 3 over 4 is the lowest term or the basic fraction. In this example, we're looking at 30 over 75. And what's done here in this example is sometimes the numbers are large and you might have to reduce it in 2 or 3 steps. So here, both the numerator and the denominator were both divided by 5 to give us 6 over 15. 6 over 15 is still not in the most lowest terms, so we have to divide again. 6 and 15 are both divisible by 3 again, so divide by 3, both the numerator and the denominator, and then we end up with our most basic term or basic form, which is 2 over 5. All right, so just for an example, we were taking 12 over 26 and reducing it to its basic form or to its simplified form or to lowest terms. So we can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2 in this case. So I'm just showing that as a step in between. And then we end up with 12 divided by 2 is 6. 26 divided by 2 is 13. All right, 13 is already a prime number, so it's not divisible anymore. So we have to stop here. Our answer is 6 over 13. All right, very, very important though to remember is when reducing fractions, both the numerator and the denominator both have to be divisible by that same number, right? So both numerator and denominator in this example were both divisible by 2. All right, so we were just practicing another fraction. We have 18 over 36, and we're going to reduce this. So some of you may have reduced it in 1 step, which is fine. I'm going to do this one showing it in 2 steps. So I'm going to take 18, divide it by 9, and 36. I'm going to divide by 9. All right, both the top and bottom, both the numerator and denominator are divisible by 9. So 18 divided by 9, that gives me 2. 36 divided by 9, that gives me 4. So now I have 2 over 4. 2 over 4 I can still reduce, right? Now I can divide top and bottom by 2. All right, and then I get 1 over 2. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. Some of you may have divided the top and bottom immediately by 18. 18 divided by 18 would have given you 1. 36 divided by 18 would have given you 2. So next we're looking at improper fractions and mixed fractions and how you can go from an improper fraction to a mixed fraction or from a mixed fraction back to an improper fraction. So when we talk about a mixed fraction, this is a combination of a whole number and a fraction. So here are some examples. 3 and 1 over 2, 5 and 6/7, 9 and 5 over 16, 15 and 7/9, right? So you have the whole number and then you have the fraction beside it. That is called a mixed fraction. And then you may have an improper fraction. An improper fraction is when the numerator is greater than the denominator. So remember, the numerator is the top number, the denominator is the bottom number. So these are some examples of improper fractions. 5 over 3, right? The numerator is greater than the denominator. 9 over 5, same situation. 7 over 2, 23 over 8. So that is called an improper fraction. So what we're going to do today is review how to convert between the two. So in this first example, we're going from an improper fraction to a mixed fraction. So keep in mind that when we talk about fractions, fractions are essentially division, right? So in this example, we have 7 over 5. 7 over 5, that's the same thing as 7 being divided by 5. So that's what we're seeing happening in this example. So how many times does 5 go into 7? It's 1 time. There's your whole number, right? So your whole number is 1. You're going to keep your denominator the same as 5. And now the remainder is 2. So we end up with 1 and 2/5. So 7 over 5 is the same thing as 1 and 2/5. And the way you can check that is very easily done. You multiply the whole number by the denominator. So you multiply the 1 times the 5, and then you add the numerator, plus 2. All right, the denominator stays the same. So if you check that, 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So we end up with 7 over 5. So we go back to the fraction, which was 7 over 5. The other example here, we have 14 over 3. So similarly, 14 over 3, if we were to write that as division, this fraction essentially means 14 divided by 3. So it essentially means you're taking 14 and you're dividing it by 3. How many times can 3 go into 14? It can go into it 4 times. That's your whole number right there. It'll be 4, right? Because it can go 4 times. Then we get 12, and then we subtract, and we're left with 2. So we end up with our denominator still the same. It's going to be kept as 3. And then our numerator here will be 2. And check it again. Take your whole number, multiply it with the denominator. It's 4 times 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. Add the 2, and that gives me 14. Keep the denominator the same. So we still can go back to 14 over 3. All right, so in these two examples, we're going from the mixed fraction to an improper fraction. So we have here 2 and 3 over 8. So you multiply your whole number, multiply it by the denominator, which they've shown here, but I'll just show it again. So we have 8 times 2, and then you're going to add the 3, which gives me 19. Keep the denominator the same, so the improper is 19 over 8. The other example then for mixed to improper, we have 5 and 7 over 8. So take your whole number, multiply it by the denominator. So that's 8 times 5, or 5 times 8. And then we're going to add the 7. So 8 times 5 is 40, plus the 7 is 47. And then you keep that denominator the same. So it's going to be 47 over 8. All right, so we are looking at adding or subtracting fractions next. The rule when adding or subtracting fractions is that you have to find a common denominator before you can add or subtract the numerators. So here we have 3/4 minus 5/6. You can notice here the denominators are different. So here our denominator is 4, and here our denominator is 6. So before we can do anything, we have to get the common denominator. So 4 and 6, they both go into 12, they both go into 24, and so on. So you want to choose your lowest common denominator. Now if you go higher, that's okay. You would just have to reduce your fraction at the end. So 4 and 6, we can use 12 as our common denominator. So I'm just going to write here 3 over 4. And how do we get to 12? We have to multiply our denominator by 3 to make it to 12. So therefore, you have to multiply your numerator by 3 as well. Then we have our 5 over 6. All right, to get from 6 to 12, we have to multiply our denominator by 2. So therefore, you have to multiply your numerator by 2 as well. All right, so now I can see that 3 times 3, that gives me 9 for my numerator. My denominator is 12. And then here I end up with 10. 5 times 2 is 10. And my denominator is also 12. All right, when adding and subtracting fractions, you keep the denominator the same now. So we have 9 over 12 minus 10 over 12. 9 minus 10. Remember, it's not 10 minus 9. It's 9 minus 10. All right. So therefore, it's not going to be 1 over 12. It will be negative 1 over 12. All right, so in this example, we're going to take our first fraction, which is negative 1 3/5, and we're going to change it to an improper fraction. So take that whole number, multiply it with the denominator. So negative 1 times 5, and then we're going to add the 3. So we end up with negative 8 over 5 plus negative 2 over 3. So look at our denominators here. We have a 5 and we have a 3. What should we use as our common denominator? All right, so we're going to use 15 as our common denominator. So that means we took our 5. We have to multiply it by 3 to put it to 15. So that means we have to take our negative 8. We also have to multiply it by 3. And then we have plus our second fraction. We have the 3 as the denominator. We have to multiply it by 5 to put it into 15. So we have to take our negative 2 and also multiply it by 5. All right, so now we end up with negative 8 times 3. That's negative 24 over 15 plus negative 2 times 5. That's negative 10 over 15. All right, so we still have to remember those integer rules here. So now we have negative 24 plus negative 10, which gives me negative 34 over 15. All right, and this is an improper fraction. So let's put it back into a mixed fraction for the last step. So how many times can 15 go into 34? 2 times, but don't forget there's a negative there. And then we still have 15 as our denominator, and we'll have 4 as our numerator. So 15 times negative 2, that's negative 30, and then we have to add the 4. So for the first example here, 2 over 3 plus 1 over 2, 3 and 2, we can use 6 as the common denominator. So 2 over 3. To get it to 6, we have to multiply that by 2. So therefore, we have to multiply the top by 2 as well. And then the 1 over 2, we have to multiply the denominator by 3 to put it to 6. So therefore, we have to multiply the numerator by 3 here as well. So this will give me 4 over 6 plus 3 over 6. Okay, add the numerators, keep the denominators the same. We end up with 7 over 6. And it's an improper fraction, so you can put it into improper, so 1 and 1/6. Recording. So we have 2 over 3 plus negative 1 over 5. So our common denominator has to be 15. So 2 over 3, we're going to multiply by 5, multiply by 5. And then we have the negative 1 over 5. We're going to multiply by 3, multiply by 3. All right, so this here is going to give me 10 over 15 plus, this is a negative 3 over 15. All right, just keep in mind the negative there. All right, so now when you're doing that, it's 10 plus negative 3, which gives me 7. So our answer is 7 over 15 for that one. So here we have negative 5 over 8 minus 3 over 8. The denominators are already the same. So write that here. So negative 5 over 8 minus 3 over 8. All right, and that just becomes add the opposites like that. So negative 5 plus negative 3, that becomes negative 8 over 8. And then negative 8 over 8, you can reduce it to give you your final answer of just negative 1, because negative 8 divided by 8 is equal to negative 1.